Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome MDRT First Vice President, Mickey Holsley.
Good afternoon. Can you just feel the energy in here? Yeah, I can. I hope you all had a chance to mingle with other members and have a great lunch. How was the lunch? Was it good? Wasn't Dr. Ola just absolutely amazing? Just absolutely. Her ability to lift up others is definitely not paralyzed. As you know, MDRT's goal is to help others grow their business and to become more successful. The presentations that we heard this morning provided strategies for us to continue to find success in this profession, but also in our personal lives. You may be wondering why the presentations on work-life balance are at a business meeting. MDRT embraces a concept called the whole person concept, which encourages members to find balance in all aspects of our lives. I believe this is one area where MDRT is truly unique. You know, success means nothing if we're not spending time with the people who are important to us, if our health is suffering, or if we don't have time to give back to our community. Being a whole person and achieving balance in one's life is a theme that's going to be addressed by many of our speakers throughout this meeting, but especially by our next speaker. He went from barely making it to achieving top of the table. And he did it all by setting high standards to work by and to live by. Please give a warm MDRT welcome to Derek Mills.
Good afternoon, MDRT. Don't worry, that was the way I used to speak as a child and as an adult into my mid-20s. My parents immigrated from Jamaica to England, where they met and married and had 7 children, of which I'm child number 5. As immigrants, they worked incredibly hard, in fact really hard, struggling to look after the 7 children in low-paying jobs, just to take care of us. And as with most little boys, I was really close to my mother. One day, after school, I ran into the house. What I noticed was that there were relatives and friends in the house, all looking terribly sad. And as I began to wonder and consider what was going on, one of my neighbors burst into the house and said, "Mavis is dead! Mavis is dead!" And she starts weeping. And that is how, age 13, I found out my mother had died. Being so close to my mother, I knew just one thing. I didn't believe it. That night, after learning of her death, I curled up by the side of my bed and I held the brown frames of the bed and I cried to get myself to sleep because I knew when I woke up it would be an awful dream. When I woke up, it wasn't a dream. It was real. And the very horror, the trauma of my mother's death literally took my voice away. I found that after her death, I couldn't speak for a week. And when I did speak is when I went back to school. On the first day back at school, the teacher asked me to read a passage from a book. And it went something like this. And I eventually blurted out, "Can't speak!" And I buried my head in my hands. And even now I can remember the laughter of the children and the whispers all around me. I now had an awful stutter. And that stutter stayed with me right through school and into college. And even at college I got the nickname, the Stuttering Parrot. But by age 21 I joined the financial services industry, this industry. But it wasn't a fairy tale ending. 4 years later, age 25, I was asked to give a presentation introduction to someone who's doing a meeting for new recruits. Just a 1-minute introduction. I remember being in that room, and right now I don't recall what I said. What I do know is that I stuttered, and I spluttered, and I sweated so badly that a young lady that was in the room that day wrote me a letter about a month later, and said in that letter, "Mr. Mills, I didn't get a job with the company. I applied as a trainee broker. And I can't believe I didn't get a job with the company when someone like you," bearing in mind she said to me, "I have this experience, this qualification, and someone like you, Mr. Mills, can be working there, someone who can't even speak properly and who babbled incoherently. How can you be working there and I can't?" I remember getting that letter, and I screwed it up under the desk, fearful to read it again, and I threw it into the bin beneath my desk. But she was right. Regardless of her intention, I knew she was right. I couldn't speak properly. So I made a decision that day that I would go and learn to speak properly again for the second time. And that's what I did. I didn't go to stuttering classes. I went to speaking classes because I wanted to learn to speak. From that point onwards, my life again was one of failure. Because in financial services, I didn't achieve success. I'm struggling. But by 25, I am married to my beautiful wife, Jerry, who I believe is heaven sent. But we're struggling. In our mid-20s, we have 2 children. And at that point, whilst I was happy with my wife, I was a failure to provide for my family. Every day was a struggle. Business, the commissions, I couldn't crack it. I couldn't sell very well. I felt a failure on every level that mattered to me. I always seemed to have more bills than money. Can you imagine my embarrassment when one day I'm in the office, my wife gives me a call on the phone. She said, "Derek, the bailiffs are in the house." And I said, "Jerry, it's okay. I'll sort it out. Don't worry." And he said, "No, they're in the house now. And do you remember that Mum and Dad, my in-laws, Mum and Dad are coming from Ireland today?" And I said, yes, I'll sort it out later when I get back home." He said, "No, my Mum and Dad are here with the bailiffs." You can imagine my humiliation. The challenge that I had, that in my 30s, it was just more of the same. I just couldn't crack it. Life was a struggle. There always seemed to be more month left than money. And by then we had 2 more children. So we just couldn't figure out what was causing that. But my financial services career was also a real struggle because my clients were abusing me. They were running me ragged. Wherever they called me to go, anywhere in the UK, I would go there and I would see them. Anytime, any place, anywhere, any premium, I would accept it. And all I would do was what they asked me to do. I was working 6 days a week, working 16 hours a day, being away from the house 16 hours a day. Late one night, I drove home from a client's house, so tired, so very tired, I nearly killed myself, crashing in the car. I'm sitting in the car driving home, and I'm looking at the car in front who's going far too slowly. And all I want to do is to get home, see my wife and children. So I put my foot down to overtake him. It's only when I crashed into the motorway barrier and bounced back that I realized I was already in the fast lane. You see, when you're not yourself and you're tired, you don't realize the messages the universe is sending you. And even then I didn't change. When I was at work, I was thinking about being at home with my children. And when I was at home with my children, I was thinking about being at work. And even now my children would say to me, Dad, do you remember this? And Dad, do you remember that? And I don't remember. Because even when I was with them, I wasn't in the room. Mentally, I was somewhere else, thinking about getting the money to pay those bills. Back then, I read that Zig Ziglar said that children spell love, T-I-M-E. And that made me feel worse, not better. One November night, at the end of November 2003, everything changed for me. I'm there in the office, the whole person I am not. And as I'm sitting in the office, I'm at a really low point and I'm feeling depressed. I'm clinically unhappy. And as I stood there in the office, the whole person didn't feel like a concept that meant anything at all to me. It was about 9:30 at night. As I looked up at the office, the security guard knocked on the door and said, Mr. Mills, time to lock up now, time to go. I said, just give me 10 more minutes. And he said, okay, and he walked away. Then he came back again 10 minutes later. I'm shuffling bits of paper, wondering who to call the next day, who to speak to. And as I'm looking at him for the second time, he said, what time do you get in this morning? I said, well, 8 a.m. And as he walked away, my words just hung in the air. I've been up since 6 that morning, on the road since 7. And at that moment in time, I've been away from my family all those hours since that morning. And I wonder, what it takes in life sometimes for us to realize what we've had enough of. Because in that moment, I stood by my filing cabinet and I just slammed the drawer. And I said, I've just had enough of this. And as I stood there, I changed. Everything changed for me. In that moment, I found myself. I found my inner voice, my true self. I found my ABC. I found that my voice spoke to me. And it was my voice, my recognized voice, my own voice. See, in the past, I've been paying attention to the world. But now, I was paying attention to me. And that voice gave me a message. It said, Derek, I am your true voice. I am your true self. What you need to do is stop setting more goals and start setting high standards and living by those daily standards. Stop setting more goals and start setting high standards and live by daily standards. Excuse me. Wrong bottle, sorry. I realized that to stop setting goals, stop setting more goals, and start living by internal standards set from within, that will change my life. Because for 18 years, I've been setting goals, but there I was a failure on every single level. Until that night in the office, there's nothing I could do right. Can you imagine being in this business, this industry, with all the possibilities available, and still being a failure after 18 years? So that's what I decided to do. I stopped setting more goals and listened to the voice within. So, Derek, you might ask, what is a standard? A standard has 5 components. It is a basis, a criteria, a level, a quality or a rule that you set from within, from who you truly are, and you stick at those standards. You commit to living at those standards every single day. And once you set your standard, you must commit to living at it. Now, a wise man once said, give us this day. When he walked on this earth 2,000 years ago, Christ said, give us this day. Not this week, not this month, not this fiscal year. Give us this day. Somewhere there's a message. It's a philosophy that helped me to change my whole life and move from doing not even 1/3 MDRT to achieving greater success and happiness. That night I set out new, clear standards. So what we can all do, we can all set standards in all the areas of our life that mean something to us, that serve us and truly honor us as people. From that November night, my life changed forever. As an example, this is not the only count. Money is not the only count. But as an example, from being a third MDRT at the end of 2003, by 2007, I'm doing levels of business to qualify for top of the table MDRT. A year later, I sent in my figures and I applied, and ever since then, I've maintained core to the table and top of the table MDRT every single year, setting standards. Thank you. And here's the thing. I did it working less than half the time. All of us can understand that when we can set high standards from within, that place can cause us to find our personal success and happiness that we've been striving for. Most importantly, what I found is I found my true self. What my message from within told me, what the wisdom from within told me, that if we listen yesterday, today, and tomorrow, to the words, thoughts, questions, phrases, and ideas of the speakers, and we take them inside, and we let them affect us, they will serve us. That's all it takes, a different way of looking at things. If you want more success in life, then what you need is a different way of looking at things sometimes. Sometimes all we need in life to be more successful is a different philosophy, a different way of looking at things. What I do know is that goals need help. And how do I know that? Because most people don't achieve the success that they want. What we know, what we found out from a research we did in North America last year, that only 3% of people said they were achieving their life goals. 3%. Let me ask you, if goals were all we need to succeed, then why isn't everybody massively successful? If all we need is goals. Shocked? I bet you are. Goals need help. Your goals need help. We know if goals gave all the success we want, goals are what we use to achieve success in our SATs, as our sporting success, financial success, business successes. And everybody uses goals, but not everyone is a success. Why is that? Why would it be that everyone is not a success? If we consider the level of depression and poverty and ill health and war and failure in this world today, we know that lessons of the last 140 years using goals alone isn't enough. But I want to give you the because. Here's the because. Because goals are based upon the future. Goals are future-based, where standards are a now experience. Standards are a now experience. You do standards today. Goals are for the future. If you set and live by high daily standards, they will change you from within. They will anchor you into today, into the present. What they will also allow you to do is to release your inner genius into your business. Standards help keeping your true self. If you can be your true self when the world is telling you to be your non-self, then you'll be more happy and you'll be more successful. I discovered that many parts of my life really lacked a defined standard. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I realized that my standards in life weren't high enough. Goals wouldn't do it. Standards weren't high enough. Is it any wonder that I was a failure, a struggle, whether at home or at work? Now, most people set goals for their future. And here's the second reason why goals don't work for most people. Goals don't work for most people because goals are future-based. When you put your goals into the future, whether it's next week, next month, or next year, most people around the world attach their happiness and their feeling of contentment to that goal. And they say, when I achieve that, when I've got that, when I've done that, then I'll be happy. And that's where the happiness stays. Out there in the future. Out there stays your happiness. But life is not about the future. Life is about now. We only have now, right now. It's about getting the best out of you right now. Doing all you can do today, right now. Being your best at your highest and your happiest right now. So if you set standards and get into your standards, you can live your life as you're given it, one day at a time. If goals were all it took to be happy and successful, how come everyone that you know back at your office today, you're here at this convention, everyone else back in your business, how come they're not massively successful? It takes more than just setting goals. when I was 9 years old, my mother gave me a coat one school morning. And I put this coat on, but I didn't want to wear that coat, because the coat was too big for me. It was my brother's coat, my brother Floyd. He was 12 years old and I was 9. But I was told, Derek, put on the coat. That's your coat. As I put on the coat, the arms were too long. The hood was too big. The body of the coat was way too long. But I put on that coat anyway, because I had to put on the coat. And I wore the coat to school. And the reason why I didn't want to wear the coat, I knew what the children would do. I knew that they would tease me, and they would take the mick out of me every single day. And then I wore the coat, and yes, they did tease me. But then magic happened. After 2 days, the teasing stopped. And I remember that they stopped telling me how silly I looked. And eventually I began to walk around in this coat, and this coat made me feel more confident, because they'd stopped laughing. I had higher self-esteem wearing this extra large, big coat, a coat that was too big for me. I remember walking around the playground one day. I remember doing it right now, walking around the playground with this big coat, feeling like Superman with a cape on, because I knew that this was something that was too big for me, but I was wearing it anyway. And a standard is like that, because the coat made me feel there. It made me feel confident. It raised my self-esteem. My coat made room for me. And a standard is like a big coat that you put on. If you stick it on and you keep it on, it will make room for you. Now here's what I could have done. I could have taken that coat and hung it on a peg for the future. I could have said, well, I'm only 9 years old. Put the coat on the peg for the future. And when I'm 12 years old, when I'm good enough, and when I'm big enough, that's when I'll wear the coat. If I'd done that, I'd have missed all the feelings of confidence and self-esteem and self-worth. I would never have felt those feelings. When we set high standards, they can cause us to change immediately, today, because they make room for us. So what and how do we set standards? How do we change standards that we have in our life? Are we even aware of what our standards are? So there are 3 things you need to do. 3 things you need to do to set standards. And the 3 action points are, firstly, to look at your existing standards. Look at your existing standards and see which ones are working for you and which ones are not working so well. Then set new standards for all those areas. And number 3, commit to living at your new standards every single day. Stick at those standards. And stick at those standards long enough to see what would happen if you did. I use a system called the Perfect Life Standard System. The Perfect Life Standard System. Because there are 7 key areas you can set standards in. And what I've learned by talking around the world, of all cultures and different countries, is if you look at these 7 standards and you set and make changes in just these 7 areas, everything will change for you. And the 7 areas are personal health and fitness, your environment, that's internal and external, your relationships, family, emotions, career, and time. I'll explain through each of those. We haven't got much time here today, but I want to take time to go through each of those so you can understand and see what it means to set standards in each of those areas. First area we're going to look at, number 1, is your personal health and fitness. It's really important that we do this, because if we set areas in personal health and fitness, they can change our whole life. In fact, good standards in health and fitness keep us above ground. Firstly, when I get up in the morning, each morning, I get my finger and I do this. And I do that because I know my shirt size. In the UK, I'm a 16.5 shirt size. So when I do this, I know that that is good. That feels good. But if I get up in the morning and my shirt collar is like this, I'm struggling to get my finger in and out, then I know I've eaten the wrong foods, I haven't exercised enough, I'm in the wrong place. So that very day, I do something about my standards. I'll change my diet, I'll exercise, I'll do something different that very day. And that changes everything. Because most people don't recognize this, that if we end up not taking action on a daily basis, we ruin the whole of our lives. It's the things that we do each and every day that makes us who we are. The things that we do each and every day makes us who we are. So there are certain qualities of our life, and it's remembering where those standards are that will help us to change into the future. I have a friend called David. David. I was speaking to David about standards and health. He asked me for some advice. I said, David, what do you do when you put on weight? He just looked at me and he laughed and said, Derek, I just buy a bigger suit. I buy a bigger shirt. And I thought, well, where does that standard get you? Because he's just been declined as a life insurance agent. He's just been declined for life insurance. See, that attitude around health, not paying attention, is what most people tend to do. And those standards around health can send us into high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, and a whole range of other ailments because we don't have the right standard. So what we need to learn to do is have higher personal standards. Last year at MDRT, Dr. David Meintz spoke to us, and he talked about the level of illness within men and women. And he gave us an idea that said that the more weight we put on here and here impacts our lives. He talked about diabetes around the world. So India has the same diabetes problem as the West and other Asian countries. Now, it's got there because of diet, exercise, because it wasn't there in this degree 25 years ago. He shared so much with us, which I remember now every single day. When I first set standards way back with my security guard incident, I set them in 3 areas: family, career, and emotions. And I chose these areas because they were the most important to me. I knew that if I had new standards in these areas, then everything else would change. What I didn't want to be was wealthy, but unhappy. I also didn't want to be happy, but broke with my children on the street. So I made a decision to change. Other areas we can set standards in. P is for your personal health and fitness. E is for your environment. The E is value, absolutely vital. We've heard today about the environment. I don't mean the green environment. I'm talking about the environment that we all set from ourselves. There are 2 types of environment we can pay attention to. Number 1 is our internal attitude. We've heard today and yesterday how important attitude is. But we have to have a new standard of attitude. What is your attitude and what's your standard of attitude? Is your attitude a garden, a beautiful garden? So when you go into your mind, you have a beautiful garden with green grasses and fruit to help you. Or is your attitude, is your mind a pit? So when you go there, it doesn't serve you. What we can do with our internal environment is we can decide to set and change our own environment. We can do this. No one else can. It's our attitude. The second level of environmental standards is external. And I don't know about you, but in the UK, we seem to have a hobby for listening to all the bad news, all the bad press, all the bad news that we can get. We suck it up and we take it all in and we're excited by it. So it's not what I do. What I do in my life is every single day, I don't listen to the news. I don't listen to the radio. I don't read the negative newspapers. I don't have any of that stuff in my car when I'm driving home. I won't have that. Because what's vital about that is that that's what feeds our minds. If that's what we take into our lives each day, if that's the standard, if that's the quality of what's coming into our lives, is it no surprise that we struggle in our lives if that's what we feed ourselves? If we stick to all the bad news, we're going to end up with bad lives. The decision and the responsibility for setting standards is our own. So we have personal health and fitness, and we have environment, internal and external. The next level, the next area to set standards, area 3, is relationships. And this is really simple, relationships. Because my father lost our mother when he was 38 years old. And he always said to us, he only gave us 2 rules. 7 children he had, 7 children, and all of us turned out okay. He had 2 rules. The first rule was, drop the bad company. If we brought somebody home that wasn't suitable, he thought, for us, one of our new friends, when they left, he'd just say, drop the bad company. That meant to us that person couldn't come to our house ever again. If, on the other hand, he liked the person, he thought they'd be good for us as people, he would say, you must keep good company. You must keep good company. It's the same in our lives, because we all know the very nature of our relationships can either make us or break us. My father worked in a factory all of his life, did not have a qualification to his name, but he knew that the people with whom we associate with, our relationships, can either make us or break us. Someone said to me very recently that our network will determine our net worth. I thought that's absolutely true. There's something else I learned. And that is that when I joined MDRT, that MDRT has great and high standards, and MDRT is good company. When we look at the next area, it's called family. Because family, area number 4 is family standards. The first thing that I did, as you can see on the screen there, the first thing that I did was I thought about my family. These were the people I wasn't seeing when I was working all the hours. These were the beautiful people I wasn't seeing when I was driving around the country. When I was doing all those days. I said to myself, I set new standards. What am I going to do now? I'm going to work less days, have new standards, take my children to school every single day. No more weekends, that's my family time. No more Fridays, that's mine and my wife's time. New standards. No matter what, I wouldn't let anything get in that way. Taking my children to school every single morning, picking them up 3 times a week, it's changed my life and my relationship with them. And I do this now as standard. As you heard earlier from my personal life, and with those to my nearest and dearest, we have to make sure that we value those relationships above all else. Consider ourselves, what are the basis, the criteria, the levels and the rules that we live by with those people, with our loved ones. Can I give you just one clue? The people, 1 second. If we can go back to the family slide. Thank you. See those people on the screen? They're the people I love the most. I've got one key message for you today, and that was that if heaven sends you angels, spend time with them. Because they're my angels. Your loved ones are your angels. Spend time with them. Because you can't get that time back. You can't get that love back. Because we only have a small amount of time today, I'm going to go through a few areas of standards on this new approach. I've been asked to speak for MDRT and other companies around the world because it's a different philosophy is help people to change their lives. It's a unique philosophy, part of the 10-second philosophy. One of the things we have to pay attention to now is our emotional content, our emotional standards. We heard a speaker earlier on talk about our emotions. And what I learned over the last 5 years is that we do our emotions, they don't do us. When we feel fear, frustration, when we feel anger, when we feel happy or unhappy, we are doing those emotions. They don't do us. So what are your standard emotions each day? What are you doing each day inside of your heart and your mind, your spirit? What are you accepting? What are you choosing to do with your emotions? And are they serving you? We do anger ourselves. When we're happy, it's us that does the happiness. So therefore we can set new standards one day at a time and practice new emotions each and every day. So what makes you laugh may make somebody else sad. What is humorous to you may be disturbing to somebody else. But we have choices around our emotions. And most people that I've met around the world have forgotten that they choose their standard of emotions every single day. So we can choose new standards. We're not dogs reacting to a ringing of a bell of the world. We can choose our own standards. We can change anything and everything about us. We have free will. The next area, area number 6, is career standards. Having been such a failure in business, and because this is MDRT, I know this area is important to you. I failed so long in business because I failed to realize how important this area is. So let me remind you, a standard is a basis, criteria, level, quality or rule that you set, and you stick to that standard every single day. One day at a time you commit to sitting at it. And you must commit to it every single day. Stick to your standards. Just one day. Just for today. Just until you get your head back on your pillow tonight. When I first began to set standards, I had realized that family was key. So in my business, tied very closely to my family. No more evening appointments. No more traveling around the world. No more around the country at that time to see people and clients for small bits of business. All clients, new standard, must come to me in the office. I turned down clients that I felt would abuse me, or abuse my time, or abuse my service, or abuse my company. I turned those clients down. And I wanted to make them know that they have to match my standard in order to become a client. There were a few of those where I had new business standards, and they were surprised to hear what standards were. Some of my clients could not believe what those standards were, but they were very high. I didn't want to go back to low standards, so I set higher ones that would serve me. And here's the magic of what happens. I'm often asked, Derek, how come you went from doing a third of MDRT by the end of 2003 to top of the table levels of business by 2007? And one of the keys is this. Standards allow you to change from within. And when you change, people see you differently. When people see you differently, they treat you differently. The same people, prospect, I couldn't do business with, couldn't get as clients and prospect, would want to come and see me, and they would travel across the country to my office. In 2003, prior to my shift, I remember being in the office and saw a client called Mr. Salcombe. Mr. Salcombe wanted to do an investment of around £100,000 sterling. And I did a fantastic report and wrote it out and gave it to him, and we discussed his needs. It was the biggest case I'd seen at that point in my career. Just £100,000 sterling. The biggest case I'd seen. But I didn't get the business. Because in that moment, I knew I wasn't worthy. I didn't feel the right self-esteem or confidence, and he could smell my fear. But a year later, after my awakening to standards and my true self, I'm in the same office, in the same building, with the clients Mr. and Mrs. Brown. Mr. Brown was a former banking executive, and he was incredibly arrogant and very rude, and he belittled me in that meeting. He was rude to his wife in front of me, a complete stranger. In the end, he stopped letting her speak. Whenever she tried to speak, he would interrupt her. In the end, she just did this. As in, I can't speak, he's not letting me speak. 20 minutes into the meeting, I closed my folder and I said to Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, based on what I've heard so far today, based upon this conversation so far, I can see no basis for us doing business. And I closed my folder. To let you know, Mr. Brown at that point was worth several £million. But I knew in that moment, if I took this client on, he would make my life a living hell. If he treated his wife that way, he would treat me even worse. What he didn't know, I'd already been to hell, and I wasn't going back. No matter how much money. No matter how much money he was going to give me. I saw them out of the office after 20 minutes of that meeting and closed the door. And I can admit to you right now, it's not even in the script. What I can tell you right now is this. When I got back into my office, I patted myself on the shoulder. And I left the ground. I did actually leave the ground. I'll tell you why. Because that was a test of my standards. You see, I've made a decision. And the universe sent me a test to say, hey, bit of money, will that get you change your standard? I said, no. It'd make my life a hell. I'm not going to sell out my life for money. It's my life. See, when it comes to qualification, you may not be the most qualified person in your company. I'm not the most qualified person in my company. It's a big company, of which I'm an agent. I'm not even the most qualified person in the office I share with other agents. I'm not even the most qualified person on the floor that I share with other agents. And let me tell you what I am. I'm the most qualified person at being me. I'm the most qualified person in that office with those clients. No matter who walks in that door, I'm the best at being me. And the better I stick to being me, the better we stick to being ourselves, the better it is for everybody. Because when we're the best, it's the best for all of our clients and for our families. You see, from this year, I'm now just working 2 days a week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday and Wednesday, seeing clients, and that's it. And in doing that, I'm getting even better at being me. There's another thing. When clients, this is a part of the business which is really vitally important. When clients come to see us in our offices, or if you go and see a client, if you go and see them, the clients will buy you for simple reasons. We've all been taught and told, everywhere we go in the world, we're taught the same thing. People buy people. And I really realize that this is a people business. This really is a people business. What I mean by that is, this really is a people business. And we do business based on trust and liking and rapport, all those things that we know. But when we do business with a client, when the client's sitting in front of us, there are 3 things that they are looking for. They're looking for our authentic selves, the ABC. They're looking for the ABC, our authentic selves. That we are balanced and that we are centered. Authentic, balanced, centered. And this is vital. I'll tell you why it's vital. Because in this industry, we've all been taught about trust is important to do business. Let me ask you, when's the last time you went on a trust course? This business is about trust and people. When did you last go on a trust course? This business is about relationships. When did you last go on a relationship course? When did your company last send you on a relationship course? If it's about relationships and people, when did that last happen? In the UK, we have trusts to mitigate taxes, to preserve wealth. And we have lots of trust courses. But it's about trust, the legal documents. I'm talking about trust. How much trust training have you had recently? How much relationship have you had training recently? That's what clients are looking for. And it seems to me that this is really important because people buy people who have the ABC. Authentic, balanced and centered. But there's another C. That's connection. When we work with people, they're looking for a connection with us. And looking to tune into us and to get who we are, to find that we're real for them. They're not bothered whether we're real for our company. They're not bothered because they're real for our family. They're not bothered that we're real for our product. They're bothered whether we are real for them as people, as individuals. And here's the big, big why. It's important to do the ABC because they don't find people like that in the rest of our industry. They don't find agents who are balanced, centered, and authentic in the rest of the... In fact, they don't find those people anywhere. And the absolute gem, the jewel in all of this, is when we can be ABC, authentic, balanced, and centered. The client finds something else they don't see elsewhere. And they want to be part of that. My biggest shift became because I dared to be myself in meetings with clients. No matter how much money they had, how much income they had, I dared to be myself. And if you dare to be yourself, you too will change. So that you can decide who you want to work with. It takes courage to be your true self in a world of non-self. It takes time to be out there. Because one thing is that we know. Let's forget for a second that we're agents. Want everyone in the room to forget that you're an agent. Or a manager, or a leader, or whatever you call yourself. Forget that for a second. And imagine you're just a human being. And if you're a human being, you're looking for connections with other human beings. And if we can find our true self, we can find it easier to connect with other human beings. My success took off in a very short period, after 18 years of failure, in the next 3 years since my change, for one simple reason. It wasn't just setting standards, but standards allow me to find myself. And people began to say, if he can be himself and have the ABC, we'll do business with him. They came to find me from around the country. They came to find me. And we don't get any training on this. It is vital. Forget for a second your client is a client and say they're a human being. No one else will look at them that way. So when you do, you'll get the success. Area number 7 is time. This is not about time management, although that is a key standard for new people. Set good time management skills, new standards of time for how you manage yourself. This area about time is about your time on this earth. It's about the journey that you're on. It's about your truth. This area of the philosophy is about where you are. See, I don't know where we came from. I don't know where we're going. I have a faith, I have a belief about those things, but I don't know. But here's what I do know. I know that we are here today. We're here today on this earth, physical beings, but spiritual people in the physical bodies. We're not a body, we're a spiritual people. What we can do in our lives is vital to help other human beings on this planet. And we achieve success by finding out who we are, finding out who our clients are, and helping them. Discover your true self. Discover what your real talents are, and do the best you can to be true to yourself. If you can be the best for yourself, you can do the best for your family. You can do the best for your client. If you can be the best you can be the best for your industry, for your community, even for your country. Setting high standards changes the world. So you can decide what new standards you want to set in the 7 key areas: personal health and fitness, environment, relationships, family, emotions, career, and time. Decide what standards you want to set and set new standards. Standards can be big or small things, and I'll share with you in a second a big standard that changed the whole of the world for pretty much everyone in this room. So you can set a new standard. This is the call to action. Your new standard could be your shoelaces, a tiny thing. Have proper, neat shoelaces as standard. Because let me tell you what clients do. Unconsciously, when they meet with you, they look at what you've got to say, they hear what you've got to say, and then they unconsciously look you up and down. If they see something small out of place, where you've missed one of your standards, scruffy shoes, tatty shoelaces, they see that, and here's what they think. Attention to detail. This person does not look after the detail. So tiny standards can affect how the unconscious decision is made by that client. So you can set new standards around how you are in your business, not just with the big things. Now, standards are, of course, a present time experience. It's about now. It's about you being the best you now, not for the future. As I mentioned before, that we don't have any futures that we can play with. There is no past that we can re-inherit. There is no future that we can live in. Because even when we get to that future, all we have is one more now. So it's about the now. It's all about now, being present and being alive right now. And having the best of you into your life right now. Being your true self right now. Getting the best from today right now. Putting the best into today right now. It's about you being your true self today. Standards help. In England, I'm known as the standards guy. Because I just believe that we don't need any more goals. I think if we live one day at a time, setting high standards, and we stick to those standards, that we will change. And we will get happiness like nothing else we've ever achieved in our lives. Let me give you a because. The reason why we must live one day at a time, using standards in the now, is because failure works every single day. Failure occurs one day at a time. Success takes the same route. One day at a time. So what we must all begin to do is begin to look at ourselves one day at a time and to live that way. Live for the better by being you one day at a time. Then your future, if you can be the best you today, your future is taken care of. It's about being you today. It's about sticking at your standards, setting high standards, and sticking at your standards long enough to see what would happen if you did. When we set high standards, we can commit to those standards. Not just setting them, committing to them. Sticking to your standards and committing to those standards. On the screen there's a document. And that document says, I've set some new standards, which we can all do in the 7 key areas. But then you have to commit to them. But here's the fun of this. You only have to commit to your standards just for one day at a time. I talked earlier on about small standards and big standards. I mentioned that standards can change the world. And they can. On a cold December in 1955, a young lady sat on a bus. She sat at the front of the bus. And she stayed sitting at the front of the bus when someone else of a different skin color said to her, "Move to the back of the bus." But she did not move. And she stayed sitting in that seat. She stayed where she was. And you know her name, don't you? You know the name Rosa Parks because of her decision that day. In that moment, what Rosa Parks did, she set a new standard for herself. A new standard for how she would be in the world. A new standard for how she'd be treated in the world. How she would see herself in the world. And she stayed in that seat. For her, it was no longer some distant goal. It was a standard for now, for her life today. In setting that very standard, she changed the whole world. She inspired everyone around her to take action, to change. And as I'm sure you well know, the day she sat on that bus changed America forever. Just around the corner, at the same time, Martin Luther King had been nominated the leader of the Montgomery Improvement Association. He heard of her case because she was arrested. Let me tell you why she was arrested. She was arrested because she had set a new standard, but the rest of the world did not see her standard. The rest of the world wants to treat her at her old standard. It will be the same for us. When we set new standards, be patient with those around you, because they're going to want to treat you at your old standards. Rosa Parks changed the world that day. Changed Martin Luther King. He became Martin Luther King because of Rosa Parks. And I do believe that no Rosa Parks, no Martin Luther King. I've been talking about setting standards for the last 5 years. In that period of time, I've been amazed and surprised and overwhelmed with the joy that people begin to live day by day and the difference it makes in their lives. For the last 5 years. But just 2 years ago in 2011, I was at MDRT Atlanta. And MDRT Atlanta for the annual company meeting. In Atlanta. So I had to go and visit the Martin Luther King Museum. And I did. I remember standing in this room and watching the screen telling the story of Rosa Parks' life. And it said that she made a decision that day that changed America. I remember coming over all emotional because the next thing the narrator said shook me. It said that African Americans made more progress in the next 10 years after Rosa Parks sat on that bus than in the previous 300 years combined. Standards. No Rosa Parks. No Martin Luther King. No Martin Luther King. No Barack Obama in the White House. I believe that. I've spoken from America last year, Jamaica, and my friends in Jakarta, some of whom are here today. And we mentioned that they believe that too. Standards can change the world. I'm asking you today to set new standards. Above all things, that your goals need help. Goals alone won't do it. Your goals need help. Set new standards. See, when I set new standards, from within, I changed. And when I changed, everything changed for me. If you set new standards, high standards in the 7 key areas, you will change if you stick to those standards long enough. Just until tonight, when your head's back on your pillow. Stick to your standards, one day at a time. But set high standards and stick with them long enough to see what would happen if you did. I urge you. If you do this, you will find more success and happiness. Not just more income, not just more sales, more success and happiness. Success without happiness is not success. You'll find more success and happiness, I guarantee it. So, if you set new standards and high standards, you will change. And when you change, everything will change for you. Everybody please stand up. Put your stuff down and please just stand up for a moment. And even if you're not standing up, or you can't stand up, then put down, clear your laps. To finish, I want to ask you to do an exercise. I want to ask you to say the words and do the actions. It's very, very simple. Repeat after me 3 times with the actions. I will set high standards. And I will stick to my standards. I will set high standards. And I will stick to my standards. I will high standards. And I will stick to my standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.